Hi, I'm Chantal Johnson and welcome to part 2 of our embroidery sampler where we're stitching with Ann Butler's faux quilting stamps. Before we get started with the stitching, let me show you a few supplies that you're going to need. You're going to need your base piece of fabric, whether it's muslin, denim, cotton, whatever you have chosen to do, and how you have created a grid from a part 1 of our video. You're going to need your DMC floss in coordinating or contrasting color, a pair of scissors, and an embroidery hoop if you choose to use them. Let me show you a few things before we get started. When you're working with your embroidery floss, you want to cut a manageable piece of floss, not too long, not too short. This is a little bit shorter than what I would use, but I want to show you the best way to separate your threads. Most embroidery floss is a six thread skein, meaning that there are 6 threads in between. The best way to do this is to pull each one out at a time, and you'll pull the desired number you need. So for us it's going to be 3, and what this does is this releases some of the fiber, and so when you put it back together it's a little bit of a thicker covering, and so it really separates the fibers. Once we've put our pieces of floss back together, we're going to thread them through our needle, and we're going to choose a needle that is appropriate for our fabric. And then in this, we're going to create a very small knot, and what you're going to do is you're going to take the thread to the back of the needle, wrap once, and slide it down. And this is actually called a smocker's knot. It's very tight, or very small, but very tight, and it will not really puff from the back, and it will be just a really good anchor knot to start with. If you choose to use an embroidery hoop, there are several kinds on the market. This is a spring loading, and they're nice. Just be careful not to get your thread caught in the actual spring loading part. This is the traditional embroidery hoop where you put your fabric through the top, and then this goes onto the bottom, and you're going to screw it tight. The one thing to remember about an embroidery hoop is when you are done for working on your piece for that afternoon or evening, take your embroidery hoop off and let your fabric rest. Otherwise, you're going to have a permanent mark that will not come out. As you can see, this is my sampler that I'm working on and that we're going to be working along together. What we're going to learn today is this stitch right here. This is called the chain stitch. And it's going to be wherever you have your solid lines, this is what we're going to do on those lines. So let me show you how to do this stitch. So as you can see, I've taken the thread from the back with our smocker's knot to the front. To create the chain stitch, the key is going to be a loose tension and even stitching. So we're going to lay our thread on the fabric kind of over our line so we have a guide. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to determine my size. You can make these small or large, not too terribly large, but you can go a nice size, something like this. And then we're going to pull it, and we're going to take our thread now, and we're going to come right at the top of our loop, take about the same amount of stitching going from the front to the back, and we're going to do another one. Now when I start, I'm going to take my back of my needle and just kind of fluff those out. Let me show you again. We take our thread, we lay it across our grid line, we go into the back of the fabric and we come out the top, and then we pull and we create our stitch. Now this one, I took it a little far. Can you see that? If this were for my sampler and not just a sample piece, I would go ahead and take this out, and let me show you how easy that is to do. Something very important in embroidery is to be willing to take out the stitches that you don't like, because you will forever see that stitch. So I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to take it out here, and I'll take it out one more time, and then I'm going to rethread my needle. So I've taken out that third stitch that I didn't like, and now I'm going to just repeat what I did for the first 2, laying my thread around or over my line, coming in close, and then out. You can even take your thread and kind of wrap it around to give you the placement. And now let me show you what you do when your thread gets a little short, or if you come to the end of your row. You're just going to take one small stitch at the top right above your last chain, and that secures that. You'll turn it over, and then you'll very kind of carefully weave your thread, not to create a big knot in the back. So we're just going to do our smocker's knot one more time. It's very simple. We come through and then back in. Just want to secure that without creating a big knot. And then you'll trim that. And so what our goal is to have very even stitches for our chain stitch on our sampler. Stay tuned for part 3, where we're going to learn how to do the blanket stitch around our faux quilted appliques. I've chosen heart shapes, but you can choose whatever shape you'd like. For more details on the chain stitch and part 1, visit Ann Butler Designs blog. And thank you so much for joining me.